got a great attendee list thus far, and I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Jen Olson, and I would like to introduce on camera, before we start here, I would like to introduce Nate Thompson. He's the Director of Social, Emotional, and Behavior Services for the Littleton Public Schools. And Nate, do you want to say a few words while our cameras are on?
Hi, good to see everybody. I hope you find this informative tonight. This is something that's been really awesome for us, and my background is as a clinical social worker and school social worker, and also trained as a principal, and I'm really happy to be joining you today. I'll turn it over to Eric.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Larson. I am the Vice President for Interactive Health Technologies, former physical education teacher, and then former physical education coordinator for Denver Public Schools. And I also worked with the Alliance for a Healthier Generation as the National Physical Education and Physical Activity Content Advisor. Nice to have everybody on.
Yeah, thank you guys all for joining us, and we're going to get right into our presentation. We're going to make this really fun and engaging. I'm going to keep my camera on just for a minute because I'm going to go through a few slides. We're going to start with a little bit about what interactive health technologies is about, how that schools are using the technology with our monitors for both physical and emotional health. And I just wanted to show real quickly while I'm on camera that the heart rate monitor, what it looks like. You're going to be kind of seeing pictures throughout the presentation, but as you can see, the color is now yellow, which means my heart is elevated just slightly. If I take some deep, big breaths, get back into a normal range, and Nate's going to really talk about some of those belly breaths, it'll get back down into that blue zone. So as we get started. So just wanted to share a little bit about that before we turn our cameras off so that we can take full advantage of the screens. And I will turn my camera off and get back to the presentation. Today's going to be
we also ask everybody to turn your cameras off. It just helps a little bit with the presentation. So thanks so much.
Perfect. Okay, we are going to already done our introductions and a little bit about us, and we'll kind of get back to that slide at the end where we have our contact information. But today's goals really are to help you gain a better understanding of how schools and districts are blending social emotional learning and physical health curricula with heart rate technology. Nate is going to talk about the impact that it's making at his firsthand level. And we really want to leave you with a lot of resources about how you can achieve your goals for improving student well-being using technology and blending that with the curriculum that you have. So we're going to have a little bit of agenda. The first thing we're really going to talk about are those firsthand experiences, and Nate's going to take that over, talk about best practices, ideas for your vision in your program, how to successfully strategize and implement, and what that looks like on a day-to-day basis. And one of the biggest things, obviously, we're going to end with is how to secure the funding. And Nate and the Littleton Public Schools just got a big grant from their educational foundation. There's tons of money out there right now, and we're going to kind of show you how to not only secure that, we're going to give you some resources at the end of this so that you can take those and start your own program. If you can kind of see here up on the left-hand side of your screen, there's a Q&A with a little red dot in it. If you've got questions, please use that. Ask us questions throughout. We want to make, again, this interactive, so don't hold them till the end. We'll kind of take breaks, and Eric will be managing those. So please ask questions if we don't answer your questions along the way. I'm going to talk a little bit about what our vision is from IHT. I started the company with Ben Benson in 2011. Our goal really was to empower ownership of health and to really help children and young adults self-manage and take full ownership of their health and well-being on a daily basis. And we wanted to personalize it for every single individual, and we wanted to make it really heart-centered. We really understood that heart rate, whether it was emotional or physical biofeedback, is the most accurate and precise biofeedback measure there is on the planet. So it levels the playing field. It also is the first thing that happens when we have an emotional response. Before our brain says fight or flight, it's the heart rate that really is that emotional precedes that. And we're going to kind of get into that. What our company exists of, we are the top-selling heart rate monitor in education. We're the only risk-based heart rate monitor made specifically for children and schools. So it's called the IHT ZONE, as you can see on the left there. what really makes IHT unique is our assessment software. So there's lots of monitors and there's lots of trackers on the market today, but monitors are monitors, but what we've really done is made it kid specific, and it's that data that comes into our software to be able to centralize it. So if I'm one teacher or one district administrator like Nate Thompson, to be able to take all of that data from the individual, the school, and the district, or even multi-district at the state level. Curriculum resources are also part of our package. We have great online resources, a very robust teacher and student curriculum and journaling resources. And then Eric's going to talk about our customer support and the training, because it's not just getting a monitor and implementing it. There's a whole process that goes into that, and that strategy and that roadmap that IHT is with you every step of the way, not only during the process of getting the funding, but even more so afterwards when you get implementation. So I kind of showed you the monitor, and I gave a great example of going from the blue to the yellow zone. If I were at a vigorous or at the emotional levels, you can kind of see some examples down below with this chart. But the monitor is very, very simple. Nate is implementing this at the elementary level. Most of our schools and districts are implementing the emotional regulation at the elementary level. And you can kind of see what those are examples of at the low, the moderate, and the vigorous, or in a resting, an elevated heart rate, or a very high heart rate, and some of the emotions that go with those that we try and help kids understand. The beauty of this is that the monitor provides real-time data for that child. So as they're having an emotional response with the curriculum that Nate's going to kind of talk about what he uses, it's almost like bumpers on a bowling alley or guardrails. It helps that individual self-correct immediately so that they can calm down and they can get back into a normal range. And Nate's going to talk about some of the outcomes that he's seen using this method of that real-time data. Once that data is then on the real time, we also then bring it up to the cloud. It correlates with anything that you possibly can imagine, whether it's academics, attendance, behavior, and then it's disseminated out to not just the students and their parents daily and to teachers, but administrators and then districts and then multi-districts as well. So I'm going to turn it over from here to Nate. He's going to talk mainly about number 3, which is the emotional self-regulation. IHT is also very integrated with physical education classes. One monitor will be used class after class, so districts really only need as many monitors as their largest class. So if you got 6 classes a day and 30 kids as your largest, you only need 30 monitors. We are obviously really big into online physical education and homeschooling. It's been a big part of our business, and even more so over the past few weeks and this spring. Nate's going to talk about how he's using it in emotional self-regulation. It's great for special education students and blended learning. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the baton to Nate to kind of get into not only his strategy, but to help you create yours. And Nate, if you want to kind of take it from here on the vision and strategic goals that you had for your wellness program and how IHT and assessment came in to strengthen that.
I will do that. I want to just start by saying, the thing I love about heart rate is it is one of the easiest but most effective ways to see how people are doing inside. And really that's what it came down to for us. We had a great group of folks at on our district team who a number of us have clinical background and have used heart rate in the past for different things. And we're really looking to figure out how to help our schools get this on an individual student level and really look at self-regulation in a different way. And so we had a school that had really been spending some great time building their foundation around social emotional learning school-wide, around trauma-informed practices, really looking at the whole child. And we really wanted to get down to that level of how do we help kids see that they have some power and some ability to regulate themselves. And how do we do that in a way that's visual? And so we started thinking about heart rate as a way to do that. And we went out looking for the best product we could find to help kids look at their heart rate on a daily basis and create an intervention that way. So we really wanted to start small. We wanted to do something that we felt could be successful at one school. And we worked with a school that we felt was ready and had a staff that was really invested, and took some real intentional time to put that together. So our main goal was really simple. it was to help kids understand how they can calm themselves down and self-regulate by using a visual tool. And so the IHT product was really the one that we felt, after looking at, we probably looked at 10 or 12 of them, was the one for kids that was very visual and had different colors that it changed. So that's really what got us going, is trying to figure out how can we be more preventative on the self-regulation side. And so I think the next slide is specific to Operation Dragonheart. And what that was about is the school that started this, East Elementary School, is the Dragons. And so we really wanted to try to think of something creative to pilot this. And so they wanted to name it Operation Dragonheart. And so some folks from my team at the district offices met for many, many months with the school to plan this out and really think thoughtfully about how do we implement this successfully. And our idea was to get a selected group of students who struggle with some type of self-regulation, whether it was internalizing, anxiety, panic, or it was externalizing, anger control, those kind of things, and take them through a 6-week intervention where they wore the watch every day. And that information and data is used with them and with their families and their teachers to see if they can start impacting their heart rate and self-regulation. And so the first picture that you can see here is a great example of, on the left, we have a student who was more of an externalizing student who really struggled with kind of self-control and anger. And he practiced learning how to calm his heart rate down on that watch so that it would change colors, and felt so proud of his ability to do that. On the right side is an example of what we were using in conferences, where we had the parent-teacher conference, and we had one of our students with her mother, the school counselor, and the teacher sitting down looking at her heart rate data to really talk about her school day and where her anxiety and panic kind of occurred. So that kind of gives you a big overview of what we were really trying to do. And then as we've gone through it now for a year and a half, we've really started to refine more and more exactly what would make a really good intervention out of this kind of program that we've developed.
That's fantastic, Nate. Well, let's talk a little bit about prioritizing your plan. And I'm just going to kind of toss out the first question. If you can kind of just roll through this in the next slide on, how do you prioritize, and what are those keys to success in integrating your vision when putting this together?
Yeah, I would really recommend starting small. I think for us, we really felt strongly that you shouldn't dive right into something like this if you don't have a foundation in your school already. For us, the school was doing a really good job implementing a school-wide social emotional learning curriculum. And again, they had done some really great training with their staff and focus on addressing kids with trauma and kids with pretty significant home situations, and really wanted to take it to the next level. As we are now looking at expanding this, we are really going to push with our schools and require that they're doing that before just jumping in to giving kids heart rate monitors. But there's a lot of details to putting this together. Some of it is who's going to carry it out. There's an aspect where you check in and check out the watches every day, and somebody has to do that. You have to have an office that's set up for that. So we really recommend that there's at least one, preferably 2 or 3 people in your building who really get trained to know how to use the software and really organize the program. We decided to start with a 6-week model where we would have kids wear the watches for 6 weeks, and we would do a pre, a mid, and a post survey with the kids, the parents, and the staff. And the other thing that we did that I think was a really helpful piece is we asked the teachers and staff to wear those watches and try them out so that they understood what it felt like as their students then would be using these. In terms of what it looks like on a day-to-day basis, the essential aspect of it is we pick a group of kids. We started with about 10 to 12, and we didn't start with just the really toughest kids. We wanted to pick kids that we knew were able to do this and jump right into it. So we didn't pick all the hardest kids. We didn't pick all of the kids that really were the easiest kids, I guess, in those terms around their behaviors. But we did require parent consent. And what it looks like on a daily basis is that those kids come in and they check in with the staff. It's typically either the school counselor or the dean, sometimes even the principal. They check in on how they're doing. They get their watch. They make sure it's working. And then they wear that watch all day. And then at the end of the day, they check out. And they review what worked well, what didn't well, what did they notice during the day. They might even look at their graph of their heart rate. And then coupled with that, each week there's some type of either group time or individual time, depending on the kid, where they're actually learning about the watch, practicing how to do self-regulation and some exercises. And I'll demonstrate one or two of those for you in a minute. But those are not the difficult things. I think a lot of people know how to do the self-calming exercises and breathing and mindfulness. It's really helping kids understand how that impacts the watch and really how to set that watch in a way that it gives good feedback to the kid. So hope that makes sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we do have a couple questions. Eric, do you want to answer these now since we've got them on the board?
Yes, and I'm going to turn one of those questions over to you, Jan, that came up, and that is, does IHT have any published data studies using the devices in elementary schools?
Sure. We are actually really excited that we've been part of a study based in Texas, a statewide study with a collaboration with the University of Texas Kearney, and Megan Atkins. Dr. Atkins approached us, who's been using our monitors in physical education, and we started a research study using the monitors really off of the model that Nate and Littleton kind of paved the way and helped us learn, and how could we really build best practices. That is a year-long study that obviously got shortened this spring. We're looking to continue it in the fall, and we hope to have that published data at the end of 2020 as we actually expand the program into more schools. And I know Nate is looking at doing some research as well. And do you want to talk a little about that really quick on what your research looks like for the fall, hopefully?
Yeah, so we're actually expanding this program to every elementary school in our district based on their readiness, and hopefully the fall is when most all of them are going to start. But we are also going to develop a research partnership and try to look at more research at more of an intervention research model. So really trying to see, are there significant differences in kids' self-regulation after using this, being in this program and using this technology? And then we're also dealing with one of the challenges, which is kids go through this for 6 weeks and then they want to keep wearing them forever. And so we have to start talking a little bit about that, and how do we help them either switch to another tool, or maybe they do continue that. But we're going to have to do some work with that as well, because there might be some research in kids using it for longer than just a 6-week intervention.
Perfect. Next question.
Nate and Jen, we have one more question, and then we'll have Nate continue on. Do the students establish a baseline with each heart rate monitor, or is a baseline assumed?
Yeah, well, this part's kind of tricky, and this is where I think we're still learning, and we've been working with IHT and Eric and the folks, is you can set the thresholds different per kid. And so ideally what you're trying to do is match that to the kid, because depending on their size, their age, all of those things, their heart rate may be different. So it's really important to figure out the best that you can, what is the right threshold. And so, yeah, as the kid starts using it, you do get a little bit better idea of the baseline, because it's really important that you have that set in the right range for the kid. Otherwise, they're going to stay in the blue the whole time and they don't really go up to yellow or red, or vice versa. And so there's some work that has to be done with each kid to figure that out. But you can start with their height, their age, their weight, and those kind of things.
And I'll just, we really designed the system. This is what heart rate is. The beauty of it is it's not cookie cutter. Everybody is individual. So each monitor can be individualized to the health of the student and to their genetics. And so that when Charlotte, Sherwood, who's on the screen here, picks up her monitor as a 3rd grader, she's going to look much differently than a 5th, 6th, or a 12th grader. So that's what IHT has really put a lot of effort behind, is in making sure that we can individualize this. So when Charlotte picks up her monitor, it's her exact specifics, so that her heart rate and her zones are going to change as her genetics say. All right, we'll go ahead and move on. And the next slide is about communicating. One second, Nate. I'm going to probably move ahead here too many because it's got sleepy. There was a video
That's
that we
okay.
did with one of the local TV stations, and one of the young girls, Martha, she was a second grader, and you saw her three zones of blue, yellow, red, and the reporter from the Fox station in Denver said, well, you don't seem like you'd ever get into the red zone. And she said, well, right now I'm in the sleepy zone. So we might have to add the sleepy zone into that. But talk about
Yeah.
how did you communicate this, and what is the buy-in and support needed from parents, students, staff, and from your community?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think most people are really intrigued by it in the beginning. Some people are worried, just like other things in a public school, worried, what are you doing? Where's this data going? Who's going to do what with it? You also will have parents who their kid may not have gotten to participate and want one for their kid. So you have to think through those things as you roll it out. I think for us, it was very important that the kids and parents saw this as voluntary. We did not want to force it on anyone. We did not, and I would strongly recommend not putting it as a part of a kid's IEP or 504 plan. It's really around, is a kid and a parent wanting an opportunity to try something different, to learn about their own self-regulation. So we did do written parent consent, and I have some samples of those if people want them. For every kid that participates, they have to have written parent consent. And we also did some real communication, like we mentioned earlier, with the school staff, and some mandatory training where the teachers learned about the heart rate monitors. We do feel it's really important that everybody understand kind of how the brain works with kind of your alarm system and emotional regulation and some of those neurodevelopmental challenges that some kids do have. So that piece was really important. And then it just took off. And really the kids and families who participated felt so good about it that from then on, it was not super hard to kind of get people interested in doing it. It was really more around how do you balance all of those other kids who like seeing the watch and want one as well.
Fantastic. Well, Nate, what have you learned and how have you grown during the first year? I know you're in year 2 right now, but just talk about the growth that you've had both as an administrator and with the school and into your expansion.
Yeah, well, I think for us, it was a part of a bigger district focus on mental health, and we have a pretty clinical approach as a district, probably go a little farther than a lot of districts do. And we were lucky to have a school board and school principal and staff at East Elementary who were just completely willing to jump in. So I definitely think you need to start with somebody who's willing to do it and don't just force it on somebody. We learned a lot. Like one thing we learned is you need to have a dedicated computer to run this software. You need to have it in an office where kids can come in and out and feel comfortable. We really are still trying to figure out the piece of, is this a 6-week intervention? Is it an 8-week intervention? Like I said, we have kids who want to wear the watch now forever. And so we have to kind of think through that. We definitely learned that parents and kids and staff all really believe that this does help kids self-regulate on a deeper level and really see a physical connection with some of that biological feedback. What we don't know is just based on science and what you would call evidence-based practice, okay, is this scientifically significant? For us, it doesn't really matter a whole lot. We'd love to have research behind it, but we see it in the responses of the kids, the parents, and the staff.
That's fantastic. Well, before we go on to Eric, I'm going to answer one more question that came in. It was about the warranty of the monitor. We recently went to a 2-year warranty. We used to be just 1, but because we built this product literally to be kid loved and kid tested, we've extended our warranty to 2 years. And so, that was one question that came in. Eric, are there any other questions that came in before we head to your question on your side of the implementation?
Let me double check. There was a question up, and I think we answered that, so that question is not up anymore. Actually, there is one. Other than the great curriculum, how are you different from other heart rate monitor companies? Jen, I'll let you answer that one.
Sure. We basically, we are the only monitor, as I said earlier, that was specifically built for education and for students. And so, as I mentioned, kids love things differently than adults do. And to have a monitor that can go day by day, especially in physical education, where that one monitor is going to be worn 5-6 times a day, student after student, and to be able to withstand that durability is a big thing. There's a lot of consumer products on the market, and that data is one-to-one. So I may be able to log my Apple Watch with my phone, but my teacher or my administrator at the district level wouldn't be able to take that data and roll it up to an aggregate level. So the ability to take the data from an individual, bring it into a centralized software. So what really makes IHT unique is not only the durability and the simplicity of the device, and to be able to fit a kindergartner through a 12th grader's wrist, but the ability to take that data and then make it meaningful. Districts have data upon data upon data, but what we want to do is we don't want to just have a bunch of data. We're trying to really show the impact of student growth. And oh, by the way, we have all this data to prove that it's working. So what really makes IHT different and unique is the ability to take that data and make it meaningful and impactful for the individual, whether that's the student, the parent, the teacher, or the administrator, or the statewide agency. Nate, do you have anything more to comment on that?
Well, yeah, no, I think that's good. I think where you have to just be really careful is that what you're not doing is just going out and buying any watch and giving them to kids and saying, hey, try this out. We looked around, and part of the reason we chose this watch was because of the optical sensor, and it was good. It was much more built for kids, and we really felt good about the way the company interacted with us. And that has been a really important piece, because having the technology that works is really, really important. And this could very easily just become something flashy that you buy, and all of a sudden you try it for a year and then nobody takes it on. What's really important about this is that it has some meaning for the kid and family and for the staff who are using it. And that's what we were able to see. I can't give you specifics about some of these kids, but I can tell you these are the kids in the school who people were really struggling with. And for them to feel some self-control and some ability to be special and lower their number and change their color on their watch was life-changing for some of these kids and families. So that's where the power is. It's not just having something flashy that you're trying out that's cool.
And we want to make sure everybody knows that we are not perfect, and this has been a huge learning process for us as a company. And so I'm going to ask Eric, because Eric is in Denver, Colorado. He was the administrator for physical education at Denver Public Schools, and so really understands the educational process and was able to be at the neighboring district at Littleton next door to be able to be on site. We also did a lot of online and a lot of troubleshooting to make sure that this could meet the expectations of the Littleton Public Schools. And Eric, do you want to kind of talk about your side of it on the implementation?
Yes, Jen. I've been working with East Elementary School and with Nate, of course, in Littleton Public Schools for the last 15 months. And this started with an on-site training for Nate, the school principal, assistant principal, counselor, and 2 of the district social workers. So we trained on how to use the IHT heart rate monitors, and they took that training back to their staff. Now, there's a lot of follow-up that goes with this. And so there's online training with Lois Mauk. Lois is in North Dakota, and she's our director of education. So Lois did several online trainings with the staff. And then I went back to the school, several visits, got feedback, and just to check and see how the program was going, see if there's questions. And then there's troubleshooting. So we had to troubleshoot with the IT department. And one of the things Nate mentioned is we went with a standalone computer that didn't have all the district software on it. And that worked much better. It made the system work a lot quicker. And so those were just troubleshooting that we had to do to get the program up and running. Jen, if you can go to the next slide. Yeah, there we go.
Yes, hold on.
Okay.
Getting there.
It's falling asleep on you.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. So this is what the heart rate graph looks like. And this is a student at East Elementary or other places, other schools that we work with. This is just a sample so that you can see what it looks like throughout a full day. So the student puts the heart rate monitor on at 8:55 a.m. and wears it throughout the whole day. And so you can see that 340 minutes at the bottom. And what's really key about this graph, and this is where the feedback is so important, is the red arrows illustrate the physical education time and the recess time, where the orange arrows, those are spikes in the emotions of the student. So when those spikes are there, and it's not during activity time, it's not during the 60 minutes that we recommend for activity time during the day, those spikes are there at other times, like the spike right before physical education, and then the two toward the end of the day, then those are things that, as a counselor, Kim Bailey would look into and have conversations with the student. She would have, in feedback from Kim, she would have teachers come at the end of the day and say, you know, what was happening with this student at a certain time during the day? They really got off track. Can you look at the chart or the graph and see what was happening? Did their heart rate jump up? You know, I noticed it on the watch that it turned a different color, but I'm just wondering how high they went into the moderate zone or into the vigorous zone. And so what you see here is you see the blue zone at the bottom of this graph, and that blue zone is the resting normal heart rate, and then the yellow zone is the elevated moderate heart rate, and then the red zone is the high vigorous heart rate. And so there's those emotional triggers that can happen throughout the day that's what Kim Bailey would look at the end of the day and have those conversations with the staff and with the student, of course, and parents. And one thing about the data collection is that it's real-time data collection. And it continues to collect data, whether they're inside or outside. They could be on a field trip. It is still collecting the data. So once they pick up the heart rate monitors and tap into our data reader, then they can go anywhere in the building, anywhere outside, at recess, physical education. They can go on a field trip. That whole time, the data is still being collected. And that can be shared with students, with parents, teachers, administrators, like Nate mentioned, parent-teacher conference. It can be shared in emails that are sent with the graph. And so that's the real key. And some of the feedback that Kim gave us, if you want to go back just a little one, Jen, that would be great. Because I think that feedback is real important in some changes we're going to make to that graph. So you see at the bottom here, it's in minutes right now. And the feedback from Kim that she gave us, and Kim again is the school counselor, is that it would be much better if those were in segments of 15 minutes and have the time of day so that it's easier to read. When she's looking at the data from several students, she can just look time of day in 15-minute segments. And the other thing that she mentioned is that a drill down option would be great so that she can look at students' 5 days of data. It can be reviewed on one page and each day color-coded for review and comparison. So what she's asking for is some changes in the coding in our software. And so we're working on that. That's going to be rolled out in August. And so we really take that feedback serious so that we make sure that it meets the needs of the schools. And I also wanted to mention some takeaways in those meetings with Kim Bailey, with Kelly Card, the principal, and with Nikki Vandervelde, the assistant principal. Some of the key takeaways, there's 6 of them. Number 1 is not letting high anxiety levels go unchecked. Number 2 is that the students learn to calm themselves down when feeling overwhelmed. Number 3 is that they learn strategies to bring heart rate down. There's a change in focus and in attitude, and these are lifelong skills that they're learning. Number 4, and Nate's going to talk a little bit more about this, is there's a significant drop in discipline and behavior incidents. Number 5 is the vision. The vision is to start to link children up with regulating their emotions so that they can tie in the sensation, the feeling in the body, with what they are seeing on the monitor. And number 6 is the heart rate monitors give a way to monitor these emotions and give them a visual representation of what is happening in the moment. And so Nate, just thinking about those takeaways and those keys, did the Littleton Public Schools accomplish its initial vision?
Yeah, I would say we did. We see it as a long-term vision, and so this initial step was great for us because we could take one school who was really committed and figure out, would this make a difference? And here's what's exciting for us. And I think Kelly, the principal, would be very quick to say, it wasn't just the heart rate monitors that made this change, because they've spent 4 years, as you can see on this data, really trying to impact their school culture and response. But if you look at the 15-16 school year up till this year, the heart rate program started last year in 18-19. But what you can see is that their behavior incidents and out-of-school suspensions have come down pretty significantly. And even to this year being at the lowest rate we've ever had for this school in all the 12 years I've been in the school district. And we don't want to say this is all because we've got heart rate monitors, but it's one aspect of everything the school is doing to help kids. And with their most kind of challenged kids with self-regulation, this is having a huge impact. And it's really to the tribute of the whole school, not just the few staff that have been working with this intervention. I put the hard data there as well so that you can see. We're just thrilled that the school as a whole has really been able to see one of the things that is such a hard concept for so many teachers and school staff to get, which is these self-regulation issues that kids have. They do have biological data associated with them. And regardless of whether you think the kid can control themselves or not, there's some heart rate changes, and there's some issues that are happening between heart and brain and behavior. And so this is really helpful to show people that when you really put the time in to care about the whole child and do these things, you will see outcomes.
Perfect. And, those are a couple things that Nate and Littleton Public Schools were really looking at. It's just some other examples. Again, anything that you want to put into our software, if you can dream it up, it can be measured in our software and correlated to heart rate. And some other examples that other schools, part of the Texas mental health study that we're part of, is looking at, increased instructional time. We've got a teacher down in the Houston area who is always leaving the classroom because he's the one that goes and breaks up and helps calm down and de-escalate situations. And his instructional time has gone through the roof with the data that we've seen with that. But from suspensions, absenteeism, you can put surveys and helping kids see an increase in the sense of belonging. So what we try and do with our school districts is kind of understand, what do you want to have at the end of the day? What goals and what strategy are you trying to answer? And then we'll work backwards, and the software is flexible enough to be able to customize to meet those expectations and that vision that you have. And also, we have a mobile app as well where kids can, if I can get to the slide here. Come on. It also provides daily data back to parents and to those students, and then to be able to use their phones as well, which is obviously critical in this spring when kids are completely online. One of the benefits is if they did have a monitor, we're sitting in front of a screen for hours after hours, and to be able to have that motivation to be able to connect back to the classroom in a really positive way from that physical side of view. So let's talk now, Nate, about the expansion and what that looks like for you, and how has school closures impacted your program, speaking of this spring?
Yeah, well, I'll just start with kind of where we are with our program is we're really wanting to put this into a structured intervention program. And so what we're doing is creating a kind of a package that has an implementation plan and requirements for our schools. And we are working on our curriculum that every kid will get while they're in the program. So I don't have those to share with you yet. Those are still in draft form, but we're pretty close in getting those together. And our goal, now that we're going to expand it to all of our elementary schools, is to really do this with fidelity and do this well so that we can do some research with it and see what it looks like, kids who are getting the intervention and kids who are not. So we're going to have kind of a cohort of schools that goes through this together with fidelity. And I think we're going to call it My Heart because East Elementary used Dragonheart, which is their mascot, but we want to have something that's more standard. So we're planning to put this together as kind of an intervention package, and then we would be able to figure out how to get it to other schools as well so that you guys could pick this up and go with it. Our big thing is we were so lucky to get funding from our school foundation, the LPS Foundation. It's been phenomenal. They have funded this. It's in the big picture of funding. So I'm speaking as a district administrator. This is not something that is hard to sell typically, and it's not something that's hard to get money for. I've been shocked at how easy it has been to get money. Our foundation loved it and jumped right on it. But there's also been other opportunities from local, state, and federal grant funds, school safety grants that are out there now. A lot of you are probably familiar with some of the school safety money that's coming down from the federal, state level. Those are perfect grants to put in for this because most of them now are addressing mental health and prevention. And so if you can tie this to suicide prevention and violence prevention and self-regulation, you have a really good chance of getting this funded because people are very interested in technology and something very easy to understand, which is a kid measuring their own internal state and trying to impact their own self-regulation. So I think it's something, in my experience, that's much easier to find funding for and implement than a lot of other things.
And Eric, do you want to talk about some other funding buckets that we've been able to tap into and help schools secure?
Yes, the ESSA funding, which you can see on this slide here, it's been around for about 3 years now, and it took the place of PEP grants in the realm of physical education. And so these PEP grants were funding many physical education programs, but now these are opened up to other subject areas besides physical education. And so there is a different title. There's Title II, which is the professional development piece, and then the other one that really impacts us, unless you're a Title I school, is the Title IV Part A. And that it provides a well-rounded education in schools. And so part of that Title IV Part A, there's 3 buckets. And as you can see, there's $1.3 billion allocated for fiscal year 2020. And this is the Every Student Succeeds Act. That's what ESSA stands for. And the first bucket is well-rounded education. So the well-rounded education covers all subject areas. So it's everything from physical education and health to social studies to science. There's all kinds of different curriculum areas that it covers. And so that's the first bucket. The second bucket, and so there's a lot of competition for that money for educating the whole child. The second bucket which we fit in with the program at East Elementary, and other districts could look into this, is supporting safe and healthy students. So this is a comprehensive school mental health program. It's also drug and violence prevention and training on trauma-informed practices. So that's the second bucket. And then the third bucket is the technology, which IHT also fits into that bucket. So it's blended learning, it's devices that can be used in education to support the curriculum. So that's another place for you to look into. And a lot of it's just establishing relationships with whoever in your district is the grant coordinator usually is also the ESSA coordinator. It used to be just titled grant coordinator, and now a lot of times when I look on websites, it's grant and ESSA coordinator. So coordinators should look that direction. Teachers should look to your coordinators, whether it's curriculum coordinators or coordinators similar to Nate for emotional health, and ask questions. Do we qualify for the ESSA funding? And because it's passed down from federal to state, and then the state makes it available for school districts. So ask questions and find out where that ESSA money is going. And I'm going to turn it over to Nate to talk a little more about other funding.
Yeah, I think I would recommend the safety grants as well. I think our state takes some of that federal money and does state grants. Some of them come directly from federal government. But I think the school safety grants are a great focus for this. And I also think your local foundations. So for example, if you look, I used the cost of about $6,000 to just do one, buy one classroom set and get a computer and do some of those things that you need. In my opinion, that's not that much for a school to kind of get this going. And so, obviously work with your district, but I think go to a local foundation and say, hey, this is not a huge amount to try something really innovative. And if we can get this going, guess what? The other people will jump on board. We were just amazed at how many people actually wanted to get involved and fund this. At one point, we had 3 different people wanting to fund this same program. So I really encourage you to just go ask and tell them what your ideas are.
And there's also technology funds. There's oftentimes a surplus within the district. Schools have bought their iPads and their smart boards. And so this is a great time. A lot of that money has to be spent out by June 30th. We've actually found a lot of schools that have surplus because they're not turning on the lights or mowing the athletic fields because of school closures. So now is the time to go ask. And we're going to just take a quick couple more questions. I think we've got a question on the curriculum, Nate, that you're using for your program, if you can answer that. And then after that, we're going to share some resources before we wrap up. But can you answer the question about the curriculum that you're using?
Yeah. So to start with, we just took some basic topics and said, okay, what are kind of the 5 or 6 main things we want to do with kids throughout this time period? Once a week. We felt like it didn't need to be more than once a week. Now, many of these kids do see the school counselor much more than once a week. And because we had such a wide range between younger kids and older kids, we had to figure out how to do that. So some kids were meeting individually, some in small groups. Ideally, you want every kid to get at least once a week some real clear training around self-regulation strategies, around the watch and how it works, and really just kind of connecting this biofeedback to this kid's life. And so we're working on a curriculum, and we're going to put that together in a package that really is kind of a set of slide decks, as well as some concrete written materials and some activities. So for example, if many of you are familiar with the 5-finger breathing, where you kind of breathe in as you go up your finger and then blow out as you come down. So this is one strategy that you use with kids is self-regulation. You guys probably are all very familiar with these, but just putting some of those things together to help kids understanding how to change that number, and really just practicing that while you have the watch on. And so the idea is the watch is really just a bridge from I don't know how to do this to I do know how to do this in terms of calming myself and having that feedback. So that's really just how we've been trying to do it. And, I would encourage everybody to give that a shot. We're going to have a package of stuff. I think on one of the slides it shows we're going to send out after this webinar our permission form, our beginning survey that we used. And then I don't have the implementation guide and curriculum yet, but we will have that soon. And we're going to kind of put that into a packaged intervention that we can distribute to people.
And then Nate, one more question is, how long did you do the curriculum in the class before the students started wearing the IHT heart rate monitors?
Well, we've done few different cohorts of kids, but the first one, we just kind of started right away. We did some very basic introductory session with the kids Some of them were in a group, some of them one-on-one, but really just saying, this is what this is what it's about, talking to them a little bit about their brain and their body, doing some very basic things to help them get oriented, and then we just dove right in. But I think our goal is to get it to where there's more of a structured, here's what week 1 is learning is about, here's what week 2, week 3, and then really connect that with the daily check-in and check-out, which is so important. That's really what the staff say is most important, is that daily check-in and check-out, and then being able to go into a classroom where a kid's wearing the watch and have an in-the-moment conversation with them, or the teacher having that conversation.
Thanks, Nate, for answering those questions.
And just from IHT side, we showed you what Nate, we're going to put together a Google folder for you. It's going to go out either tonight or first thing tomorrow. Jake Plotkin behind the scenes is working hard on getting that together. But by tomorrow morning, you're going to have that package, all the information that Nate shared, that is his student and parent surveys. And then he's working again on that curriculum. But from our side, the strategy roadmap, which is on the right-hand side here, we've got a 2-page funding document as well. That's basically just kind of take it and make your own. And then, of course, reach out to us. At the last slide is going to be Nate's email, mine, and Eric's. And so reach out to us and let us know how we can help you and get you some more resources and guidance, or any testimonials from other districts or other individuals who have gone through this. And we're going to just kind of finish here with any final questions. I think we have a couple, Eric, on some that you mentioned.
Yes, Jen, I'm just looking through to make sure that we haven't missed anything on the questions.
Let me jump in here on one thing, you guys. I didn't answer the question about how has school closures changed this for us. Well, obviously for us, we're not doing heart rate monitors at home with kids right now, but I wish we would. I wish we would have thought about it and been planful enough to say, let's send those heart rate monitors home. We probably wouldn't have the data because of the technical issues with that, but we would at least have kids having that watch at home to be able to monitor. So I think there actually are some uses that you could probably figure out. Our goal right now is how do we use this in school, but we're also looking ahead to how do we help kids maybe use this long term, whether it's this exact same watch or maybe they transition to something else, a Fitbit or an iWatch or whatever, Apple Watch in the long term. But for right now, these are really great for elementary kids. And we are also looking to expand. We're going to start with one middle school probably next year and then look at secondary in the following year.
And then, Jen, if you could answer this question about how many students are assigned to a heart rate monitor and how does that work throughout the day?
Sure. So as I showed on one of the first slides, schools use the monitors in a variety of ways. The biggest way that we've actually implemented as a company when we started was in physical education, and we're in tens of thousands of schools around the world, actually in 22 countries, mainly in physical education. In that scenario and in that environment, you only need as many monitors as your largest class size. So a set of 28 or 30 monitors. I'm based in Austin, Texas. Our class sizes are 100 at some point. So if you have 100 kids, if you're from Texas, you know what I'm talking about. But so you would need that number of monitors ideally. And then one monitor will go class to class. All of the monitors are numbered. So I pick up number 15, period 1. Eric wears it period 2, Nate wears it period 3. So that one monitor, when you pick it up, this stopper knows what class is coming in the door and who's assigned to that monitor. And then it's empty. When it's put onto the little data reader, it uploads all of your personal settings so that, again, we can really focus on the health enhancing level of that individual. In the all-day wear and the behavioral SEL that Nate is using, where they pick it up at the very first of school and then they bring it back at the end of school, one monitor is assigned to one student. And Nate, you said you've got 28 monitors, I think, at East, or you're doing about 28 students per 6-week period?
We started smaller. We usually start with 10 to 12, but we have increased, and we do keep each kid assigned. So they're all numbered, and we keep one kid assigned to that number. So unless we need to fix a watch or something, they keep that same number through that entire intervention period.
And really we have schools, as Nate mentioned several times, and we really believe in this, is that you want to start strong and build, start small and build strong. So we've got schools that start with 4 monitors, as Nate mentioned, starting with 10. So for $1,000, class set of 28 is about $4,500. So I think that's kind of what you did, and with the training, and we automate your roster so that those the computer and all the pieces that go with it. But you're probably looking at around $4,500 to $6,000, depending on if you've got the computer with it you already, and then some of the services that we offer above and beyond that are optional. But as little as $500 to $1,000 can get you started in a starter pack for this. And again, as Nate said, this is a perfect time not only to find the funding, but it is fairly easy for this focus area that our schools are now putting a big concentration on.
It's also great if you work in a center-based special education program. It'd be a great tool for that kind of a program, where if you use an intervention with them. The other thing we've considered, and we haven't done yet, but we've talked about, is having each class in the school take a turn wearing the watches and do a lesson with the kids. We use In Focus, is the social emotional learning program we use at East Elementary, and it's really well done because it talks about the 3 different areas of the brain, and kids learn about their brain while they're learning self-regulation and social emotional skills. But we've also talked about maybe you could do a unit with the heart rate watch with that curriculum for each class to practice. So that's another idea we've thought about.
Perfect. And the last question that I was just sent is, can you use multiple computers to pick up and return the monitors? Yes, you can. We have, again, in Texas here, we've got very large classes, and so 2 computers can be used. When you guys purchase, or when you purchase our product, you'll be assigned a dedicated customer success manager. Eric mentioned Lois. We've got Bev Brown and Brandon Wolf, and they'll be assigned you based on your state and your district, and they'll work with you to make sure that we can fit, because every school is different, every environment, every pickup, and it's so unique that we'll make sure to work with you to make it work for you.
And then, Jen, one more question, and I think we can wrap it up. And does IHT have any plans to work with other researchers to publish data using IHT technology?
Yes, and if that was your question, please contact us. We would love to work with you. But yes, we actually have, Eric and I were at a superintendent conference in February, and we're collaborating. Obviously, everything got put on freeze immediately after that conversation, but we are interested in collaborating and building more research, because we have so much data that's being collected, and to work with organizations that are interested in taking this and really showing the impact. As Nate showed on his graphs, it's great. We've got incredible anecdotal stories with the Today Show that was featured at East Elementary in Littleton, but that research piece is really a big piece that we would love to collaborate. So if you know anybody, please send them our way, and you can do that by our emails. On the next slide here, once my computer wakes up, it will be, my email is jen@ihtusa.com, and Eric is just eric@ihtusa.com, and then Nate in the middle. And we really appreciate everybody being on and spending an hour with us to learn more. If we didn't answer your questions, we'll be sure to get to those. And as mentioned, as soon as this is over, you're going to be getting a packet of these resources, including this presentation, that you can share with your administrators, principals, and your colleagues to see if this could be something that could fit within your vision. Nate, any final words?
No, thank you. Great. Good luck to everybody.
Thanks, Eric.
No, thanks everybody for being on, and make sure that you follow up with us if you have additional questions, and we'll get back to you.
Have a good night.